My fiancée slept with her boss after I paid for her master's degree, so I exposed them at her graduation and walked away forever. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and for the longest time, I thought supporting my fiancée through grad school was proof of love. Her name's Emily. Ambitious, sharp, the kind of woman who walks into a room and everyone notices. When we first met, she told me she wanted to get her master's in marketing to make something of herself. I promised her she wouldn't have to worry about a thing. I meant it. While she buried herself in textbooks and late-night projects, I worked double shifts at an engineering firm and picked up freelance gigs on weekends. My life became an endless cycle of work, sleep, and whatever time was left to check on her. But I didn't complain. I was proud that I could give her a chance to chase her dream. Every time I handed over another tuition payment, I told myself it was an investment in our future, our life together at first. She used to send me sweet texts. "You're my rock. Couldn't do this without you." But slowly, they stopped coming. Calls got shorter. "Busy, babe?" "Deadlines," she'd say, her voice flat. I'd catch myself staring at her social media, wondering why she looked happier in those group photos than she did when we were together. One night, while I was paying her semester bill online, I glanced at the total. It was more than my yearly savings. I laughed quietly to myself, thinking, one day it'll all be worth it. But something in me twisted when she brushed past me that weekend and muttered, "You'll understand when I start earning big." That should have been the moment I realized I was no longer her partner. I was her stepping stone. But love makes you blind, and I was already too deep to see how far I'd fallen. It started with small things, unanswered calls, delayed replies, and a tone that always sounded like I was interrupting something more important. At first I told myself it was just stress. Grad school was intense, and Emily was always the overachiever type. I'd text her things like, "Don't forget to eat," or "Proud of you," and hours later, I'd get a short thanks, or sometimes nothing at all. When I asked if everything was okay, she sighed. "You're being a little clingy lately, babe. I just need space to focus." That word clingy stuck with me. I was killing myself to pay her tuition, yet somehow caring too much had become a flaw. She started mentioning this new internship she got, a big deal apparently. "My boss, Mr. Carter, is amazing," she'd say, her eyes lighting up in a way they hadn't in months. "He actually understands marketing." I laughed and said, "Guess I'm just the boring engineer." She didn't laugh back. Her schedule changed. Nights once spent on video calls turned into late study sessions or networking events. I'd hear background voices during our calls, male voices, and when I asked, she'd snap, "Oh my God, stop being paranoid."
One Friday,
I surprised her on campus with dinner. I waited an hour outside her lecture hall, holding her favorite takeout. When she finally appeared, she froze. "You didn't tell me you were coming?" she said, glancing around nervously. "I didn't think I needed permission," I joked. But she didn't smile. That night, she barely touched her food. The distance between us was no longer emotional. It was visible, suffocating. And for the first time, I felt it deep in my gut. Something wasn't just off. Something was changing. But I still convinced myself love could fix it. I didn't know then I was feeding a fire that was already burning me alive. The first time. I heard her talk about Mr. Carter in detail. Her voice carried something new, admiration mixed with excitement. "He's such a visionary," she said over dinner one night. "He built his own firm from nothing. He really believes in me." I smiled, proud that someone recognized her potential, but part of me hated how often his name came up. It wasn't jealousy, it was intuition. That quiet, gnawing instinct whispering, something's wrong here. Soon, every conversation somehow looped back to him. "Mr. Carter said my pitch was the best in class."
Ah.
"Mr. Carter thinks I should aim higher."
Ah.
I used to be the one she shared her ideas with. But now I was just the listener in the background of her new world. Then came the changes, subtle but sharp. New dresses I hadn't seen before. Designer perfume. A phone upgrade, though she'd sworn she was broke last week. When I asked about it, she laughed lightly. "Relax. It's a gift from the company." Perks of being top intern. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I told myself I was being paranoid, that she deserved nice things after all the effort she was putting in. But late at night, when she ignored my goodnight messages, I'd scroll through her social media and see him tagged in group photos, standing a little too close. His hand always just behind her back. My friends noticed too. "Man, she's glowing lately," one of them joked. Grad life treating her well? I forced a smile and changed the subject. I couldn't admit it, but the glow wasn't for me anymore. Every story she told, every smile she gave, somehow led back to him. And deep down, I knew I was slowly being replaced, one compliment at a time, by the time winter came. Emily felt like a stranger living in my phone. Our calls were shorter, colder, like ticking off a chore. I'd say, "I miss you," and she'd respond with, "You're being dramatic, it's only been a week." She used to fill silences with warmth. Now, they were heavy, loaded with something unspoken. I decided to surprise her again, a foolish move. I know now. I drove 3 hours after work to her university, holding a small gift, a silver bracelet engraved with for us. When she opened her dorm door, she looked startled, not happy. "You should have called first," she said sharply. Behind her, I saw a blazer hanging on her chair, a man's blazer. My chest tightened. "You had company?" I asked, forcing a calm tone. She rolled her eyes. "My classmates were here." "You're overreacting." I wanted to believe her, but her eyes didn't meet mine. Dinner was worse. She barely looked up from her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't let me see. I tried to talk about our future, the house we planned, her graduation, maybe even setting a date. She interrupted me mid-sentence. "Can we not do this right now?" I'm exhausted. That night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced down. The name flashed across the screen. "Mr. Carter." My throat went dry. The message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My hand trembled as I put it face down. When she came out, she smiled faintly, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't wait up too long." I stared at her, realizing I was watching the woman I loved drift further away. She didn't even care enough to hide it anymore. I should have confronted her then. But I was still in denial, still clinging to a version of her that no longer existed. A week after that visit, the truth found me in the ugliest way possible. Emily called one evening, flustered and distracted, saying her laptop had crashed and she needed help recovering her project. I drove over that weekend with my toolkit, happy to finally be useful again. She handed me the laptop, muttered a quick thanks, and disappeared into the kitchen, while repairing the corrupted files. I found a folder buried deep under her documents, one she clearly thought I'd never see. The name was ordinary, Presentations. But inside, I saw photos that froze my blood. Emily, dressed in the same outfit she wore the night I'd surprised her on campus, wrapped around Mr. Carter in a hotel room. Screenshots of texts followed. "Can't wait till this weekend. He's paying for everything. Feels too easy, you're worth it, babe." My hands went cold. My vision blurred. I just stared at the screen, numb. When she walked back in, I asked quietly, "Who is he?" Her smile faded instantly. "What are you talking about?" I turned the laptop toward her. "You know what I'm talking about?" She didn't cry, didn't apologize. Instead, she scoffed. "You went through my stuff? Seriously? That's so invasive. Couldn't even speak. You cheated on me, Emily. After everything I've done for you." Her eyes hardened. "Don't make this about you. We've both changed. You're not ambitious enough for me anymore." That line cut deeper than the betrayal itself. Not ambitious enough. I walked out without another word, leaving her standing in silence. Outside, the cold air hit my face, and I realized the woman I'd been sacrificing for didn't exist. She'd replaced love with convenience, and I was just the fool funding her new life. Still, part of me wanted answers, and I wasn't done uncovering the truth. For days after the confrontation, I drifted through life in a fog. Sleep wouldn't come. Food tasted like ash, and work felt meaningless. I couldn't stop replaying her words, "You're not ambitious enough." The irony stung. My entire life revolved around her ambitions. But heartbreak slowly gave way to something colder: curiosity. I needed to know the full extent of what she'd done. I started quietly digging. Bank statements, transaction histories, every payment I'd made on her behalf. That's when I noticed it: a series of academic seminar expenses in cities hours away. Hotel stays, flights, restaurant bills, all charged to my card. One receipt even listed double occupancy.
Ow.
My stomach churned. She wasn't just unfaithful, she'd made me fund their affair. The next blow came from an unexpected source. A classmate of hers, Leela, messaged me after seeing my name on Emily's Instagram posts. "Hey, I think you should know," she wrote. "People here talk. Everyone suspects she's sleeping with Carter. She brags about him." My hands trembled as I read the messages, screenshots of Emily laughing with friends about balancing two lives. Something snapped inside me. The heartbreak transformed into still, deliberate rage, the kind that doesn't explode, but calculates. I gathered every file, every receipt, every message. My love for her was gone. What replaced it was precision. That night, I stood by the window, staring at the skyline. She had her graduation coming up soon. She'd invited me to celebrate everything we'd built together. The thought almost made me laugh. She had no idea that the man who once funded her dreams was now planning to dismantle the illusion she built. The revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be surgical. And it would end exactly where her pride began, at her graduation stage. Once the rage settled, something else took over: clarity. I stopped reacting and started documenting. Every receipt, every transfer, every message that proved how deep her deception ran. I organized everything in a hidden folder on my computer, titled Closure. I wasn't doing this to win her back or to hurt her. I was doing it to reclaim my dignity. Over the next few weeks, I reached out to people from her program. Some ignored me, others hesitated, but a few spoke up. One classmate, nervous but honest, said, "Everyone knows. She flirts with Carter in the open. She calls him her real mentor." Another sent me a photo. Emily sitting on Mr. Carter's lap at a private dinner during a networking event. My chest tightened, but my face stayed calm. I thanked them and said nothing more. Meanwhile, Emily called occasionally, pretending nothing had happened. "You've been quiet lately," she said once. "You're not still mad, are you?" Her voice was light, almost mocking. I told her I was fine, busy with work. Inside, I was memorizing the sound of her lies, because soon I'd silence them for good. I even reached out to Mr. Carter's wife through a burner account, sending her a few selected screenshots. Her response was chillingly short: "Thank you." I had my suspicions. Okay. Each day that passed, I refined my plan. I wanted the exposure to be clean, undeniable, and unforgettable. No shouting, no confrontation, just truth. Cold, public, and devastating. Emily thought she had everyone fooled. She thought she'd walk across that graduation stage celebrated, admired, and untouchable. She had no idea that I'd already written her downfall into the very moment she'd planned to shine. And when that day came, I promised myself I'd be there not to see her succeed, but to make sure her mask finally shattered. Graduation day arrived like the calm before a storm. The campus buzzed with laughter, cameras flashing, proud families clapping under the morning sun. Emily looked radiant in her cap and gown, a vision of success. Her smile was wide, confident, rehearsed. If anyone saw her that day, they'd think she was the perfect picture of hard work and grace. Only I knew the truth hiding beneath that robe. She'd invited me herself. "You're the reason I made it here," she'd said sweetly over the phone, her voice coated in sugar. I played along, congratulated her, promised I'd be there. What she didn't know was that I'd also sent invitations to Mr. Carter's wife, a few of his colleagues, and her entire academic committee. I made sure every person who had praised her integrity would be sitting in that hall. I arrived early, sitting near the front with a calmness that felt unnatural. My heart didn't race anymore. It was steady, the kind of rhythm that comes after pain turns into purpose. On my lap sat a small flash drive tucked into an envelope marked for the program director. It contained everything: screenshots, receipts, photos, timestamps, her entire web of deceit. When Emily spotted me from across the aisle, she waved and mouthed, "You made it." I smiled back, not out of affection, but finality. Her boss sat 2 rows behind her, grinning smugly, unaware that his career was about to burn alongside hers. The ceremony began. Speeches, applause, names called one by one. When they announced Emily as the top-performing student, she stepped up to the podium, glowing with pride. I leaned forward slightly, fingers tightening on my phone, because the moment she started to speak was the moment her perfect world would begin to crumble. Emily stood behind the podium, smiling that flawless smile that used to melt me. "I wouldn't be here without the people who believed in me," she began, her voice steady, confident. The audience hung on every word. "My fiancé," she continued, glancing at me with those same soft eyes she once used to manipulate me, "has been my biggest supporter. He showed me what love and sacrifice really mean." For a moment I almost laughed. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. That's when I tapped my phone screen. The projector behind her flickered a brief glitch, then a sudden shift. The slideshow she'd prepared vanished, replaced by a new presentation titled "What It Really Cost." The first image appeared, a photo of her and Mr. Carter at the academic seminar, holding hands in a hotel lobby. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily froze. The next slide showed bank transactions, receipts, and text exchanges. "Use his card. He'll never check. You make me feel alive again. Babe, I'll distract him this weekend." Murmurs turned into shocked whispers. Mr. Carter's wife stood up from the 3rd row, eyes wide, jaw trembling. "You bastard," she hissed, her voice cutting through the silence. Carter buried his face in his hands. Emily's mic clattered against the floor. "Turn it off. This is fake," she stammered, her face draining of color. Security rushed toward the projector, but it was too late. The room had already seen everything. I rose quietly, the entire hall turning to look at me. "That," I said softly, "is what loyalty bought me." Then I placed the flash drive on the director's table and walked out. Behind me, chaos erupted, shouting, crying, confusion, but I didn't look back. The door closed behind me with a final, satisfying click. For the first time in years, the air felt light again. I hadn't just exposed her, I'd freed myself by the time I stepped outside the auditorium. The crisp air felt like oxygen after years of drowning. My phone buzzed nonstop: calls, messages, unknown numbers. I ignored them all. I just walked one slow step at a time, feeling the weight that had sat on my chest for years begin to crumble. Later that night, the fallout began. Word spread fast. A video of the exposure was already circulating online. Someone had recorded the entire thing. The comments were ruthless. "Power move. She deserved that. Justice served." For once, the internet was on the side of the quiet guy who finally snapped. Mr. Carter's company released a statement the next day, announcing his resignation due to personal misconduct. Wife filed for divorce within the week. As for Emily, the university suspended her pending investigation for ethics violations. Her scholarship was revoked. Her name was removed from the graduation honors list. Her parents called me once, her mother crying, her father furious. "You didn't have to ruin her life like that," he yelled. I just replied I didn't ruin anything. She did. Then I hung up. At work, I finally told my boss the truth about the extra shifts, the money, the sleepless nights. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're a better man than most. You handled it clean." It was the first time in months I felt seen, not as someone's provider, but as myself. That night, I sat alone on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker. My phone buzzed again. Emily. I stared at her name for a long moment before turning it off completely. Her voice had no power over me anymore, because the silence I felt now wasn't emptiness. It was peace. The weeks that followed felt strange, quiet, almost too quiet. For the first time in years, my life wasn't centered around someone else's needs. I woke up without rushing to check tuition deadlines or answer frantic calls. I ate meals at normal hours. I slept without waiting for a message that never came. But the stillness had its own ache, grief disguised as freedom. Some nights, I'd replay it all in my head. The long hours, the sacrifices, the blind loyalty. I'd whisper to myself, how did I not see it sooner? But healing isn't about answers. It's about acceptance. I started therapy reluctantly at first and told the whole story. My therapist said something that stuck with me: you mistook endurance for love. That line hit harder than any betrayal. I began rebuilding piece by piece. I got back into shape, picked up guitar again, even reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the Emily years. One of them, Jake, laughed and said, "Man, you sound lighter. Like you finally dropped 100 pounds of emotional debt." He wasn't wrong. I even shared parts of my story anonymously online, not for sympathy, but closure. I titled it "The Cost of Loving the Wrong Person." The post went viral overnight. Thousands of comments poured in from people who'd been through the same, men and women, who sacrificed everything for someone who saw them as disposable. Reading their words made me realize I wasn't alone. My pain had purpose. Each day, the anger faded a little more, replaced by clarity. Emily had taken my time, my money, my trust, but she didn't take my soul. I still had that, and now, for the first time, I was finally learning how to live for myself. It's been a year since that day. The day I walked out of that auditorium and left my old life behind. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to feel that old weight on my chest, but it's gone. The silence that used to haunt me now feels like freedom. I no longer measure my worth by what I give to someone else. I measure it by what I refuse to tolerate. A few months ago, an email popped up out of nowhere. The subject line read, "I owe you an apology." It was from Emily. My heart didn't race this time. It barely moved. Her message was long, full of excuses wrapped in regret. She said Mr. Carter had taken advantage of her, that she wasn't thinking straight, and that she'd lost everything since graduation. She ended with, "You were the only person who ever really loved me." I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't need to. Her apology wasn't closure. Walking away was... Sometimes I wonder what she's doing now, whether she ever rebuilt her life. But those thoughts fade as quickly as they come. My life has meaning again. Real, quiet meaning. I started mentoring young engineers, teaching them how to balance ambition with boundaries. I tell them, if someone truly loves you, they'll never let you burn yourself to keep them warm. Every scar she left reminds me of one truth: love without respect isn't love at all. I used to think my story was about betrayal. Now I see it's about rediscovery. Because in losing her, I found something far more important: myself.